Supergirl just got hit with another problem, and this time, it's not coming from the box office. While Spider-Man Brand New Day continues dominating the conversation, the people behind Supergirl are now being forced to explain why their movie couldn't come close to the same level of success, and Millie Alcock has now entered that conversation herself, arguing that comparing Supergirl to Spider-Man is unfair because one movie is led by a man and the other by a woman. But there's a major problem with that argument because Hollywood has already given us proof that audiences will absolutely show up for female-led superhero movies when the story actually connects with them. And now, with Warner Brothers reportedly looking to reduce marketing spending on future DC projects, the fallout from Supergirl could be much bigger than one disappointing movie. So before we break down exactly what Millie Alcock said, make sure you subscribe to the Woke Watch if you want more Hollywood, DC, Marvel, and entertainment news. Now let's get into what is really happening here. Ever since Supergirl started struggling at the box office and on digital platforms, we've seen a familiar pattern from the people connected to the movie. James Gunn has defended it. Peter Safran has defended it. David Zaslav has addressed the situation. Writer Anna Nogueira has pushed back against the criticism, and now Millie Alcock is once again defending the film while taking aim at the comparison everyone seems to be making. That comparison is, of course, Supergirl versus Spider-Man, Brand New Day. And this is where things get interesting. Spider-Man has been generating enormous box office momentum, with the film reportedly reaching around $1.2 billion worldwide in a remarkably short period of time. Meanwhile, Supergirl has been dealing with disappointing theatrical results and a difficult digital rollout. Those numbers naturally invite comparisons. But according to Millie Alcock, that's exactly what shouldn't happen. And her reasoning has created an entirely new debate. According to Alcock, James Gunn made what she believes is an important point. You can't fairly compare the two movies because their lead heroes are different. One is centered around a male superhero, the other is centered around a female superhero. And according to her argument, male-led superhero movies are still more likely to outperform female-led movies because of the sexism and misogyny that supposedly continues to exist within fandom culture. Alcock argued that this isn't simply an American issue either. In her view, female superhero projects continue facing resistance from audiences around the world simply because women are occupying the central role. And that's why, according to her, comparing the box office numbers between Spider-Man and Supergirl doesn't tell the full story. She believes the contrast between the two movies is being used by critics to push a narrative against Supergirl, rather than examining the larger circumstances surrounding both releases. But then she took the argument even further. Alcock suggested that the people behind Supergirl had to deal with a tremendous amount of online harassment, including sexist and misogynistic comments directed at herself, Anna Nogueira, and James Gunn. She believes that backlash made it more difficult for the movie to succeed and argued that Supergirl never received a completely fair opportunity to prove itself. And she also suggested that the same problem is continuing on digital platforms, claiming that people are still boycotting the movie for what she considers the wrong reasons. Now, this is where I think we need to slow down, because there is a very important distinction between misogynistic attacks and legitimate criticism. Obviously, if somebody attacks an actress or filmmaker simply because she's a woman, that's completely different from criticizing a movie. But the existence of toxic comments online doesn't automatically mean every negative reaction to Supergirl was motivated by sexism. And that's the biggest issue with this argument, because audiences had plenty of things to criticize about the actual movie: the screenplay, the dialogue, the pacing, the world building, the character decisions, the overall narrative, and most importantly, whether the story itself was compelling enough to make audiences care. Those are legitimate questions that have nothing to do with the gender of the lead character. And that's why the response from fans has been so divided. Many people aren't rejecting Supergirl because Kara Zor-El is a woman. They're rejecting the movie because they didn't connect with the story they were given. And there's already a major example from Warner Brothers that proves this point. The first Wonder Woman movie arrived in 2017 and became a major success. Gal Gadot was the central character. She was the hero. The entire story revolved around her. And audiences showed up. They didn't reject the movie because the main superhero was a woman. In fact, the film became one of the most successful female-led superhero movies of its era. Then came the sequel, Wonder Woman. 1984 also had a female superhero at the center of the story. Same character, same basic appeal, same female lead. But the reception was dramatically different. So what changed? The answer is simple. That's why using Wonder Woman as an example creates a serious problem for the argument that female-led superhero movies automatically struggle because audiences don't want women in the lead. The first movie worked because audiences connected with the writing, characters, emotional stakes, action, and overall story. The second movie didn't receive the same response. And that demonstrates something extremely important about superhero movies. The character isn't enough. You can have Superman, you can have Batman, you can have Spider-Man, you can have Wonder Woman, you can have Supergirl. None of those names automatically guarantee a successful movie. The story still has to work. And that's the criticism Supergirl's creators need to address if they want to understand why audiences walked away. But the controversy doesn't stop there. Because while Millie Alcock continues defending Supergirl, there are also growing questions about what happens to the broader DC universe from here. We're already hearing about cost-cutting measures surrounding future DC projects, including efforts to reduce marketing expenses. And that reportedly comes from the top, with David Zaslav pushing for tighter spending across future projects. That matters because marketing is one of the most important tools a studio has when trying to launch a new cinematic universe. If Warner Brothers is forced to reduce those budgets because of the financial performance of projects like Supergirl, the consequences could extend well beyond this one movie. And then there's Man of Tomorrow. James Gunn has already suggested that Kara Zor-El will have a significant role in that upcoming Superman story. He's also indicated that Supergirl will be portrayed as being more powerful than Superman in certain respects, because of circumstances surrounding her character and her experience. That's an interesting creative decision on its own. But after the reaction to Supergirl, some fans are now wondering whether putting such a heavy emphasis on Kara in the next Superman movie is the right move. There is also the argument that audiences need to watch Supergirl in order to fully understand certain elements of Kara's character going into Man of Tomorrow. And that's where some viewers are beginning to feel like the movie is being used as a promotional gateway into the next DC project. Basically, the message becomes, you need to watch Supergirl to understand what's coming next. But if audiences already decided they didn't want to watch Supergirl, that strategy could create another problem. You can't force audiences to become invested in one character simply by telling them that character will be important later. They have to care first. And right now, that's the challenge DC Studios is facing. Then we get back to the Spider-Man comparison. Yes, Spider-Man is one of the biggest superhero brands in the world. Nobody should be surprised that a major Spider-Man movie can generate enormous box office numbers, but the scale of the difference between Spider-Man and Supergirl has still become a major talking point. The contrast is especially striking because Spider-Man is succeeding at a time when the superhero genre itself has been under intense scrutiny. That means audiences clearly haven't abandoned superhero movies entirely. They are still willing to spend money when they believe the movie is worth seeing. And that's perhaps the most important takeaway for DC Studios. The audience isn't necessarily saying, we don't want superhero movies. The audience may simply be saying, give us a superhero movie worth paying for. That's a very different message. And if Warner Brothers and DC Studios continue blaming sexism, fandom toxicity, or online negativity every time a project underperforms, they risk ignoring the criticism that could actually help them improve. There will always be trolls online. There will always be people making disgusting comments. There will always be extreme reactions on social media. But studios also have to separate those people from the much larger audience that simply didn't like the movie. Because if you treat every negative review as an attack, you lose the opportunity to understand why audiences walked away. And that's where the future of the DCU becomes so important. James Gunn has a massive amount riding on the next phase of this universe. Superman helped establish the new direction. Supergirl was supposed to build on that momentum, but now the franchise has another challenge, convincing audiences that the next movie deserves their time and money. Whether that happens with Man of Tomorrow remains to be seen. And Millie Alcock's comments have certainly added another layer to the debate. So now the question is simple. Was Supergirl really held back by sexism and toxic fandom? Or did audiences simply reject the movie because the story didn't work for them? Because those are two completely different explanations. And the answer could have a major impact on how DC Studios approaches its future projects. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with Millie Alcock, or do you think the Wonder Woman example proves that audiences will absolutely support female superhero movies when the story delivers?